This episode contains language and subject matter which some listeners may find distressing. Listener discretion is advised.
If you're old enough to remember when phones had cords and the only thing that went viral was a cold, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Big 6-0 with Kaylee Harris and Guy Rawlinson. Because who better to discuss life's second act than two people who still think mature is a type of cheese?
Welcome to the Big 6-0 podcast. I'm Guy Rawlinson, and if this is your first time here, grab a cuppa and brace for something just a little bit shy of average. Of course, sitting alongside me is my old mate and the only person I know who thought that the tan coefficient in trigonometry probably had something to do with copper tone and a
Trigger
deck
what?
chair.
What you talking about?
The fabulous and always beach ready Kaylee Harris.
Hello.
Hello. Look, our guest today is the classic Aussie battler. The little guy who gave it a red hot go, turned a few scraps of fabric into a fashion brand that now reaches around the world. He's a bloke who didn't grow up with a lot, didn't follow a straight line, and definitely didn't have a backup plan. But what he did have was grit, imagination, and the guts to back himself. In an industry that's overrun by mass-produced overseas designs, his brand Jimmy Stewart proudly flies the flag for Australian-made fashion, which is bold, original, and impossible to ignore. That'll be pretty close.
Pretty close.
He's reinvented himself more than once, stared down rejection, and somehow turned a pandemic into a business opportunity, and is the creative force, the craftsman, and the character behind the brand. Jim Grenenger, welcome.
Thanks very much, Guy. Thank you, Kaylee, for having me.
I've known Jim for well over 10 years now, so he's as colourful and as large as life as you'd expect, but he's also a caring, hard-working and no-nonsense guy who genuinely looks out for people. And he'll never admit to just how tough his personal journey's been, but that's part of his charm. And as impressive as the destination he's arrived at is, it's important to start every story at the beginning, and that's where I'd like to start today. So, Jim, welcome once again. You had a tough start, raised by a single mum, two older sisters, and probably growing up a whole lot faster than most kids would have had to have grown up, and that was through necessity, really. Can you walk us through your life growing up?
Yeah, it's a journey that I often think about because it's so filled with twists and turns. But I remember my mum did it really tough. She just she married a guy that already had a family that had been married, and it's funny. I found out about this whole other family that I had later on in life that they were step people, but wonderful people. But that was his first sort of journey. But my mum divorced him, I think, after 7 years or something, and I think he had a problem with a bottle. He was a bit of a gambler, and I think he came home one day, without any money again. He'd blown his paycheck, and Mum just picked up the kids and took us out. And we were living in this little flat in Campsie, so she sort of went round as a housekeeper, and my elder sister moved to the country. She was 17 and getting married. My other sister, who's 5 years older than me, moved down with her at the age of 12. So my 17-year-old sister was looking after the 12-year-old, and then Mum had me, and I went round as a package deal with the job she had. So she worked for. I remember she worked for a high court judge or something in Beecroft, and we lived in Murray Farm Road there. And then she lived with someone else at Epping and looked after their kids, and I was part of the parcel. So it was a bit tricky, so, but, she did a wonderful job. She did a wonderful job with me, and I was scared shit of her, but, she was, she was hard. She wouldn't let me swear. She she sort of did everything that both parents would do, and as much as I think, it's really important having a male figure in the thing, I didn't have one. But I know that she got she was renting the back of a house in North Strathfield. And this was part of my journey. It's a funny part of the journey, but we were renting the back of this house in North Strathfield. And I'd moved so many times before. I said to Mum, I don't want to move schools again. I was in year 5, and I said, I want to finish it off. And we were living at Croydon at the time when I went to Croydon school. And I think we were living in this house that ended up being a brothel, and all my friends were the prostitutes. And Mum said, we've got to get him out of here, So that's where she moved out, and we moved into this flat in in North Strathfield. So I said, look, I don't want to change schools again, so I want to keep commuting to Croydon School. So I get the train from North Strathfield. I go to Strathfield. I change. I get on another train and go to go to Croydon and go to school. So I do that. And I'm trying to think of what age I was, 12 or 13, and might have been 14. I just couldn't imagine me letting my kids do that at that age. But, that's what happened back then. And she had herself. She couldn't rely on anybody else. All she could do was what she could do. So I remember there was this one defining moment in my life that I was on the train and I was coming back from Croydon, and we got to Strathfield Station and I had to change trains as I normally do. And I was there, and an older man had come up to me, and he approached me and he started talking to me. And, I was green as an apple and, very happy to have a chat. And he started talking. He said, oh, you like girls? And I said, yeah, I like girls. And he said, oh, you like to take them out, I suppose. I said, well, Mum gives me money if we go to the movie. I'm just as green as an apple. And it was at the time where Strathfield Station was trialling, the toilets were 5 cents or 2 cents or something. I can't remember which one it was. And he said, go into the toilets. I will give you $5 to either suck his dick, or I had to suck his dick, or he sucked my dick, or whatever. And I didn't quite understand him. And I asked him I'm sorry, I don't understand. And he said it again. And I said, no. And he walked away, and I never saw him again. And I ended up burying it. And I buried that story. And this is where, things sort of, you're not even conscious of it, but you bury it. I didn't tell Mum. I didn't tell anybody. Mum was the closest person to me, and it was never going to come up. So then my mum ended up getting remarried again, and she married my stepfather, and he lived in Ryde, and that's where, we moved to Charles Street, Ryde. And across the road were twin boys. There was a family, wonderful family, but the twin boys were 2 days older than me, and they ended up being my best friends. And for the first time in my life, because we moved so much and it was really hard for me to bond, these guys were just wonderful. They were just absolutely wonderful. And they were twins, and I felt comfortable with them. And I remember one day thinking, I've got to tell somebody about this. So I sat down with them, and the first time I'm opening myself up, and you're worried about it, you're worried about how, what they're going to think and whatever. And I end up telling them the story. And they were funny guys, very good sense of humour, and we all always had a good sense of humour. And I told them the story, and I just said, so this guy has asked me to go into the toilets, to suck his dick, and he was going to give me $5. And Greg said, what'd you buy? And from that second forward, it wasn't a problem anymore, and it was wonderful. He had cracked this thing that I had buried for so long, and these two guys are still my best friends to this day. And the one that said, why did you buy, Greg, unfortunately has early onset dementia, and he doesn't remember a lot of his past, and the humour's gone from him. And it's really sad. He's the same age as me. He's 2 days older than me, So that was a real defining moment for me. So, that was my upbringing. But meeting that family, I ended up working for the family for a long time. But that was a very defining moment for me as a child. So if that...
So let's get to, this is putting you at the beginning of high school. You go through high school and then you're deciding, like all kids are at that age, what you're going to do with your life. What were you thinking?
I can't believe how stupid I was back then. You know, I just think on a scale of 1 to 10, I was like minus 32. You know, I was so stupid because I guess I didn't have that father figure in my life, and there wasn't, you know, like your dad can put you aside and say, look, what would you like to do? And there was none of that for me. And I only found out about 2 years ago that a Boilermaker was a welder. I could have been a welder. If I would have asked what a Boilermaker was, I could have possibly done that. And, you know, I love carpentry now, and I didn't want to do that. So I was a bit lost. I was very lost. And I had all of my friends from school were doing, you know, they were doing trades and they were doing different things. I was lost. And I had lots of different jobs, lots of really meaningless jobs. I remember working at the fish markets. It was my first job. And I'd come home and I'd have a shower straight away because I stunk. And I'd go over to my friends, Greg and Daryl, across the road, and they'd go, have you had a shower? And I'd go, yeah, I just had one. They said, do you want another one here? You know, I couldn't get the stink out of me. And the jobs were equally as bad. I worked from there, Fleming's, Foss's, you know, there was lots of just really shitty, meaningless jobs. But then we decided to sell everything. We had a few different things and travel around Australia. And we got to Rockhampton. Greg,
Who's we?
It was Greg,
Yep.
the gentleman that helped
your
crack the
neighbours.
code,
Yep.
know, with that thing, and his other younger brother, Terry. So our first stop was Coolangatta. We lived there for a while. We got a little place, and then we moved up to Bundaberg. We picked tomatoes. We picked rock melons. We lived in a tent up there at a place called Winfield. I remember that. And then we moved to Rockhampton, and Greg had a tendency to fall in love often, and he fell in love there, and that's where it stopped. So we then came back down to Sydney, and then I'm going, what am I going to do? And everybody I felt like was 2 steps ahead of me because they were doing apprenticeships and they were doing traineeships and whatever. And I see this job for a prison officer in the paper, and I go, I thought about being a policeman, but my grades were terrible. I was terrible at school, you know. We had a school reunion about 10 years ago, and I think I spent the whole night apologising to people, you know, just because I was a bit of a thug. You know, I think I'd moved around schools so much that when I turned up at Meadowbank School where I did my high schooling, I was quite a tall guy, and you know, everybody was working out where, you know, the pecking order, and I got picked on a few times, and I had to stand up and be counted, and I did that. But I just realised I was a thug. And so when we had the school reunion, I spent the whole time apologising to people, you know, I'm so sorry, you know, like they just said, no, you're okay, you were just a bit tough. And I said, no, I've worked it out. I was a thug, you know, like, but they were all really nice. And then, so I saw this job for a prison officer, and I thought, well, yeah, maybe I could do that, you know. So, and the training was probably the best part of it because, you know, you learned so much, and I really threw myself into it because I felt like maybe this is my future. So I did it for 6 months, exactly to the day. And it was just the hardest, not hard physical and not hard mentally. It was hard draining because you're dealing with the worst people in the world. You're dealing with the rapists, the murderers. I'm in maximum security. I'm in the MRC, the remand centre at Long Bay. These people are the worst in the world. I remember talking to a guy once, and I thought he was a decent sort of person. He was a crimp. But you never ask them what they're in for because they never want to tell you if they're a pedophile. You know, they wouldn't want to tell you. But I remember talking to this guy, and I just thought he was decent. I thought, how did you end up in jail? You know, like, where did things turn wrong for you? And then I remember he got sentenced, and him and his mate held down an 87-year-old woman and beat her over the head with a beer bottle. And I thought, and I remember Greg and Daryl, my friends from across the road, just saying, you're getting really tough. And I thought, that's enough for me. And that was it. So I was 6 months to the day.
Well, as they say, jails are full of innocent people, right?
Yeah,
and
I never met them, but you know, I'm sure they're there.
I noticed just in the news that recently they're talking about a huge shortage of prison officers in the system in New South Wales. Can you see why that's the case?
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, Kaylee, because it's just a really, really tough job. But it was run back in the day. We're talking about when I'm 21. And 21's the youngest you can be for a prison officer. And when I was there, there was a lot of English there, and they ran it, and it was unionised. That, I remember a guy coming up to me saying, "You're going to be sick tomorrow," and I said, "No, I feel quite good." He said, "No, you're going to be sick because I'm going to do a double, and then you will do my double the day afterwards." And so it was all, there were rorts going on, but you'd stand by a gate, and that's all I would do for half the day, and I'd wait for a prisoner to come along and go, "Gate boss," and I'd open the gate and I'd shut the gate, and that was my day. And I just felt like I needed mental stimulation. I was not getting it from that job.
Your mates are saying it's making you hard. This is coming from mates who knew you might have been a bit of a tough guy at school as well.
Yeah.
But you're also a guy that, your past would say that you're a bit of a free spirit as far as a breeze, not knowing what you're going to do professionally. How hard was it to move away from being in the corrective services system where there was stability, a regular paycheck, there was potentially a career there for you, and move into something which you probably had no idea where you're going to jump? Tell me how that decision to go from corrective services to that next part of your life came about.
I remember I didn't like the corrective services, and it was making me hard, and it just, there was nothing nice about it. And then my twin friends, Greg and Daryl, I remember Daryl, the other one, had come back one day and I said, "Where have you been?" He said, "I just enrolled in a fashion course." And I went, "A fashion course?" He said, "Yeah, it's called fashion technology." And I went, "What is it?" And he said, "Well, you learn to do patterns, you learn to sew, and and I went, "I'm not doing anything. I'll go and enroll too." So I enrolled as well. So we enrolled the first year was at Meadowbank, and I was so fish out of water. Like the day turned up where everybody, turned up for the class, and the introductions are done, and there's Daryl and I and every girl. They're just young girls. They're 15, 16-year-olds, and they'd been doing home ec with their mum. They knew how to sew, and I am so out of my depth. I'm what am I doing here? But I was interested. I was really interested. And the teacher I had was amazing. That we had about 5 teachers, but we had one main teacher called Julie Martin. And, I would have to thank her. She was amazing. And there were times that I would have been the greatest pain in the arse the world's ever met, because I remember they were showing all these different figures, like there was a stoop figure and whatever, and they'd say there's an erect figure, and I'd start to giggle, and totally, like ridiculous young boy behaviour. But I had it all over me, and she tolerated it, and she put up with it. And I remember one time, I just started sewing stuff, and I thought, maybe I'm getting this. Maybe I'm starting to understand it. And she came by and she said, "Jim, can I take that from you?" And I've gone, "Sure." So she's taken it, and it was a shirt. I was making this shirt. And she went out to the front of the class and she goes, "This is what you don't do." And she showed them. And I had put one sleeve out of an arm and the other one coming out of the neck. So, even though I'd started to get a little bit of confidence, it got belted down and put back in my place. But she was tolerant, she had a lovely way about her. And that's where it all started.
So to be fair to say, it didn't come naturally to you.
Absolutely not. It was very, very different. And I didn't see it as a career at the time. I saw it as something that was going to fill in time, I guess. I was out of the corrective services, thank goodness. I started to, maybe behave a bit better, and not that I behaved badly, but I think I just looked at people and judged them. I don't know. I can't quite remember.
So plainly you finished your studies though. You've got through the course.
Yeah, I did the course.
What happened after that? Did you say, well, okay, what am I going to do now? Or did you start making things at home? And what happened?
Yeah, it was all of that. Like there was a second year. The first year was at Meadowbank, and then they closed that part of the TAFE, so I had to find another TAFE, which is Petersham. So I did the second year at Petersham. I did part-time at East Sydney, and I started to get, although, you know, in a class of 25, I was 23, 24. Let me tell you, you know, there was no illusions about where I sat or the talent that I had. I had very little talent, and I had some ideas, but they weren't great. You know, like the first year I did with Daryl oozed natural ability, and you know there'd be an exam on, and I'd study so hard for the exam, and I'd get a C plus, and I'd be so happy. Daryl would study the night before and get an A minus. You know, he just had that in spades, and I didn't have it. And so I had to work hard. So we did the second year. We did the second year at Petersham. We finished everything. I sold everything I owned, and I went overseas. I was overseas for 6 weeks. I blew every dollar, and I came back poor. Started working at part-time at Riders with Leagues Club just to, you know, get money. And then I thought, well, maybe if I start making things, you know, people might buy them. And at the time I think I was living in Carlingford. And so I was cutting things on the floor with scissors, and I'd make some of them, and then I'd get other people to piecework and put things together. And there was a shop at Eastwood called Woody's, and I'd make a couple of things, and I'd go down and I'd show him, and he'd go, no, they're not me. So despondent, walk away, make a couple more, show him. And I think he got to the stage where he was so sick of me that he tipped me into someone else, and he said, go and see this person. So I went to see that person, and he loved everything that I'd made. And he said, what else have you got? So I brought everything. He bought everything, and he wanted to know when I could make more. So that started from there. And then he said, look, you don't just sell to me, you sell to other shops. So, and it was funny getting into the industry after TAFE. You go, how much is a buttonhole? You know, how much do you pay for fabric? Like, you know, so many things that you didn't know. And you look back on it now and I think, God, how did I get through it? You know, it's crazy. So he tipped me into some other stores. I started selling to other stores. And I remember my first big order there was a chain store called Ron Rolls. They were at Burwood, and they were at also Liverpool, and they were in 2 other shopping centres. And she gave me an order, and it was over $3,000, and it was just, we're talking 1983, 1984, and that was so much money. And I had no money. Like, I started the business with $100. So, and I had no one to borrow off. Mum had no money, you know, and so, you know, I just sort of scratched through and made the order, delivered the order. She gave me the check for $3,500. I remember taking it to my bank manager, which was one of my best friends' father, and he ran the Commonwealth Bank at Seaforth, Max McCarthy. And I went in there and I showed him the check. And I think that everybody thought I was just, you know, what's Jim doing, you know, like whatever. And he looked at the check and he said, maybe you got a business.
Was that daunting, that first order to come in and you think, my gosh, that much money, and I don't know what the order was. I don't know whether it was all of a sudden, how am I going to do this, or...
Oh, I shit myself. I had to try and lie to get accounts from people. I had to make up things that they'd give me an account, you know, so, and they did. And one of the companies, Martin & Savage, that I buy fabric from today, was one of the first people that I bought fabric off for that Ron Rolls order, which was just amazing. And we're still in contact today, and I still buy fabric from them, which is just amazing, because most of the time I buy fabric by myself when I fly overseas. But,
so where are you up to now? Where is the business now?
Well, the business...
the business is called Jimmy Stewart.
Yes.
So I want to ask you about, you know, the Hollywood namesake for the business. Where did that name come from?
Well, okay, when I first started... working, and as I said, I worked at Riders with Leagues part-time. I was dating a girl called Geraldine Stewart at the time, and we thought we kept it very quiet. thought nobody knows about this until they started paging Jimmy Stewart to the foyer. Everyone knew. Everybody knew. It was like wildfire.
They always do, don't they?
Yeah, they always do. And she had nothing to do with the business, but it was a catchy name. And at the time, back then, there was an actor called Jimmy Stewart. And so it was a play on that. And I thought, maybe this is a good thing. We spell Stewart Stuart, which is the way her name was spelled. And we'll do it that way. And then I end up getting in trouble with trademarks. Trademarks wouldn't let me have it. It wasn't my name, and I had to fight for 3 years to get it. But I got it. So, and then started sort of going from one shop to a next shop. And then we were wholesaling. We had an agent up in Queensland. We had an agent down in Victoria. We were selling to lots of different shops. And then COVID hit. And I'm making this flamboyant, extravagant thing that people like to wear and show people, and then all of a sudden we're locked down.
We haven't touched on the type of shirts and things that you make. So, like you just said yourself, flamboyant, lots of character, lots of colour, and big patterns and things like that. Why did you choose that? Where did that come from?
Well, that wasn't where it started. Where it first started, I remember the first shirt I ever made was, if you've ever watched the Seinfeld episode, the puffy shirt, it was very similar to that. And we called it a pirate shirt. And that was one of the first shirts I ever made. And it was the first shirt that I ever got into a shop. I remember I was so proud. It was a shop at Carlingford. It was called Pat About. And the guy had agreed to take it on consignment. So he wasn't buying it off me. He'd take it, and if he could sell it, I would get paid for it. But that was the defining moment for me, getting it into a shop. I felt very important. But I was making things, I think at the start, that I wouldn't wear. And I think something changed somewhere down the track. And I think it was when I first started flying overseas buying my own fabrics. I started buying some flamboyant stuff, and I thought, gee, I like this. I really like this, because it wasn't a young person's thing. It's 30 upwards. That's my demographic. And you get guys that come in, and I still to this day, we've got a shop in Mossman, and guys come in and they put something on, and they're in shock. They come into the shop, and the shop is so full of flamboyance that they're a little bit intimidated. And I said, look, you're not going to buy anything you don't want to buy, but I want you to try some stuff on, because guys are very, very regimented in the way that I don't wear pink and I can't do this and I can't do this, whereas women are completely the other way, But I think the flamboyance started when I started flying overseas buying fabrics, and then I could buy whatever I wanted, because I worked out that I couldn't buy from local wholesalers anymore, because the local wholesalers were selling to companies that they would buy sampling and get it all made overseas. So I've worked out I'm dead. If I get it made here, I'm paying twice the price against somebody that's made something in China. I have to have my own stuff. So it's not the same, because you get a local fabric mill and he's selling to him that's getting made in China and selling to me that's making here. I'm dead. They're buying the same garment, and my garment's $10, $15 wholesale dearer, so they're not going to buy from me. So I stopped buying from local people and went overseas and found my own fabrics.
And as you say, it's not a young market.
No, it's not.
What's changed that those guys in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s have decided, look, I don't need to wear just a blue solid shirt anymore. I want to be a little bit out there? Because without word of a lie, I was actually at the races last weekend, and the term, there's a Jimmy Stewart, it just piques your attention. But there must have been some cultural shift that you saw coming to go down that path.
No, I don't think so, Guy. I think divorce plays a big part. And I'm serious. We get an amazing amount of people that are just divorced, and he's worked out, he's been in a marriage that maybe it's loveless, or maybe he's given up, or he hasn't tried with his wife or whatever. And then all of a sudden the wife's left him, or, the marriage is disintegrated, and he's back on the dating scene, and he's got to wear something, and there's nothing better. Women notice what men wear, And I get these guys come in and they go, thank you so much for what you set me up with the other day. I had women all over me and they're just saying, oh, this is so good. He said, I've never had this. This is like finding the internet for the first time. Like I've got women coming up to me, and it's amazing because lots of men are stupid. Fundamentally, we're stupid. Like if you look at a guy won't buy something. They look at a flamboyant jacket and they go, oh, look at that. That's hideous. Then they see another guy in a jacket and they go, oh, there's another guy in a jacket. Then they see another guy in that sort of jacket and they go, maybe I could wear that jacket. Whereas women are exactly the reverse. A woman sees another woman in a jade green dress and another woman in a jade green dress. She goes, I'm not buying a jade green dress because they're everywhere. So it's exactly the opposite. So men have to see a few other people in it. I
think too. When I see a man in a flamboyant shirt, I think, wow, he's got confidence. He's owning that look. He's loving that look, and that tells me a lot about that guy. It's like you're happy and comfortable in your own skin.
Absolutely, yeah. And we do. I remember I was in a pub one day, and I felt like I had the sun behind me because it was so big. But we do big sizes. We do up to 11XL, and that's the size of a small country in Africa. And this guy was behind me, and it was like he had this, like the sun was behind me because he was in one of my shirts, and I've turned around, and it was so bright, and he owned it. He loved it. Yeah. You
mentioned the pandemic, and I know we had a chat about this because you need to be seen in these shirts, and you came up with what I thought was a great business model to circumvent the problems that we had with the pandemic. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that was a bit scary for me because, my wife now, Wendy, was the love of my life. She's worked for Qantas all of her life, and she got stood down, and we had two mortgages. We had a mortgage on the house at Belgola. We had a mortgage on her house in Balmain, and then all of a sudden, nobody's buying my product. And I thought, we're in a lot of fucking trouble. We're just, we're in a lot of trouble, And I remember sitting down one day and I said to Wendy, I'm going to make a face mask. She said, what? I said, I'm going to make face masks. I've got cotton fabric. All my stuff is cotton. This is the best thing next to your mouth. And people are starting to want face masks, So I had to Google how to make a face mask, because there was certain, and, I'd buy elastic, it was too thick and it was too stretchy and, and it didn't go over the ear. And eventually we got the prototype and we thought, yeah, that's great. And it was 3 layers and, had this elastic in it. So we made some. And I remember Wendy did a lot of eBay stuff. She'd sell stuff on eBay. And I said, look, why don't you put these face masks on eBay too? She said, yeah, all right. So she put it on eBay. Then we were going to dinner one night and we were selling one here and one there and they were $13.95 or $15.95 or something each. And there was free postage in it. And we were going out to dinner one night and she said, $700 has just dropped into my PayPal account. I said, for what? She said, I don't know. So she looked at, she said, masks. They're buying masks. And I said, wow. So we went out to dinner, and by the time we got home from dinner, it was $4,500 that were there. Now, the problem was I'd only made 50 masks, so I was in negative by a lot, so I panicked. I went to work at 4 a.m. that morning. I cut some. I started making them. I called in some friends that I knew that could sew, and we started making them and it never stopped. And from that moment forward, we were just a mask factory. It stopped. I stopped making shirts. I had all this dodgy fabric that, I thought was good 5 years ago that nobody really liked, that was under the table, that turned out to be a fabulous mask. And so we converted all this old fabric into masks and it was worked out fabulously. So we were doing all of that. And then at one stage we had $36,000 in PayPal. And they locked us out. We went to get the money and we tried to get the money and they wouldn't let us have the money. So, we work out what's going on here. So, we had to book in a phone call to Arizona, which was the head office PayPal. And we just said, you know, why? And they said, it's fraudulent. We looked at your eBay account and you know, like a massive spike and it's fraudulent. I said, it's not fraudulent. I've done this all my life. I make clothes and this is what I'm doing. I can send you videos of things. But also you had this feedback system and our feedback was at 9.7. Everyone's really happy. They're getting their goods. It's not fraudulent. And he said, try us again in a couple of weeks. And this went on for ages and we just couldn't get the money. So we sent a solicitor's letter. They ignored it. Just didn't know what to do. And then my younger daughter was working for Channel 9 at the time and I rang her, Rosie, and I said, can you get me current affairs number? She said, what for? And I said, we still can't get our money out of PayPal. So she said, yeah, all right. So she went up there and she spoke to them and she said, Dad, they're very interested. So a guy called Brady Halls, I don't know whether you remember him from the current affairs, he rang me and he booked, we had the shop at Avalon at the time, so he came and met me down at Avalon and did a bit of videotaping there and then went back to the factory at West Ryde and did some videotaping there. And there it was, everybody sewing, making masks and it's funny, I had this shirt and it was my biggest ever selling shirt and it had an embroidered red back on it. Do you remember that, Guy? Do you remember the shirt?
I do.
I've been doing the shirt for 20 years. Anyway, got to the stage where we did tarantulas and we did scorpions and we did that. And we did lots of big sizes and we did up to 9XL. Anyway, I had some of these shirts that they're on the nose. Nobody wanted to buy them anymore. I had a 9XL tarantula shirt. So I've got to wait for a 9XL guy to buy this. And it's ridiculous. And I'm trying to get $60 or $70 wholesale for this shirt and I can't sell it. And then I thought, hold on. If I cut this shirt up and I cut where the tarantula is and I make the tarantula right where the mouth is, this could be good. So I did one and it was fabulous. You know, it's not me, but there were lots of people that, you know, we were in a world where everything was subdued and, you know, you can't go out, you can't do this. And this was a way of people really showing their thing. So I turned that shirt that was $50 or $60. By the time I cut masks, it made $600. So I got all these shirts that were scorpions and redbacks and whatever into masks. And people loved them. You know, I couldn't get enough of them. You know, we were backed up with them. So for, you know, a good year and a half, Wendy worked for me because she was stood down. So she became a rag trader. And we just made masks. And, you know, we got through, which was great. And they were Australian made. And they had mandated Victoria. So everybody was panicked and they needed masks. And I had jumped onto that bandwagon earlier than anybody else. So it did really well that period. But it wasn't through good management. It was more luck, but it just bounced my way. And then back to the PayPal thing, they did the current affair thing, and Wendy and I were really worried about how we'd come out, you know, with the video coming out because you spin it another way and whatever. But they were, you know, I remember us watching it on TV, and just before it went to air, Brady Halls rang us and said, look, we rang PayPal and we said, we're doing a story on you and you're going to come out of it really badly. Release their money and we'll say that you did the right thing. And they said, we'll release their money, but we don't want it to air. And they said, that boat sailed. It's going to air. So how do you want to come out of it? And they released the money. And Brady Halls rang me and said, try and get the money. And we transferred it straight away. The $36,000 went into our bank account. We got it. We could pay people again because we were really behind the eight ball. And then it went to air that night. And Wendy and I are sitting on the lounge going, crossing our fingers that this is going to look all right. You know, my nose is not going to look any bigger than what it really is. And, you know, like, and Wendy's worried about her hair and, you know, do they show my legs in the thing? And anyway, it came off really, really well. And when it was over, and it was called Jimmy versus PayPal. And then when it was over, I had this, there was a young girl that worked for me, and I said with my phone, if we ever got an online order, can you make a ka-ching sound? She said, yeah, I can do that on the phone. And give me your phone. And she made this ka-ching sound. So whenever, you know, I'd be walking along and somebody would buy something online, it would go ka-ching. And I go, oh, what have I sold, you know? And I remember that night, Wendy and I going to bed and just going ching, 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 ching. And we went to bed going, oh my God, because people had found us. And in a world where everybody was anti-China, and you had this guy that made stuff in Australia, oh God, I didn't even know he existed. And that was what they were doing. They were buying all that stuff.
You've got a flourishing domestic market. You've got a flourishing overseas market from online sales. You've also happened to have a few, we'll put inverted commas, ambassadors. A lot of guys that are very well known in this country have actually sported a Jimmy Stewart shirt as well. Can you share a few of those with us?
There was one, probably one of my favourite things. There was, it's another story, which I'm not short of, but I used to sell to a shop up in Bangalore, which is just below, it's inland from Byron Bay. It's a lovely spot. And there was an old bank building, and a guy had taken over the bank building, and he called his business Design Bank. And they bought a lot of my product, and they sold it really well. And, the Australian made thing was really good. And I'd go up there and I'd do some sales trips and I'd sell to them. Anyway, he rang me one day and he said, do you know Steve Roach, blocker? It was a really hard question to answer because when I was young, I played rugby league for Ermington Rydalmere, and I played against him. He played for Balmain Police Boys. And I remember he punched me in the face one day in Leichhardt Oval, and we got into a punch-up. I remember that scrum, he clocked me and my nose was bleeding, and I remember that. So somebody saying, do you know Steve Roach? Really hard to answer. And I said, I know who he is, whatever. And they said, he came up here and he was raving about your shirts and he wanted your number. And we didn't give it to him because of, whatever. And I said, oh, right. So that was interesting when they said that. And then about a year later, a friend of mine who's a builder got invited to Bunnings for, it was just before the State of Origin, and it was one of those nights. And he said, do you want to come? It's free. And I said, yeah, we came. A couple of us came. And then I was sitting next to a friend of mine, Craig Shepherd, and he saw Blocker, and he goes, oh, there's Steve Roach. I'd love to get my photo with him. I said, just go up. He's talking to people. He said, no, he's talking to people. I said, he'll be talking to people all night. Just go up there. And he goes, oh, no, I'll wait. I said, come with me. So he came with me. I walked up and he was talking to somebody. I said, oh, Steve. And he's turned around. I said, you don't know me, but a long time ago we used to play against each other. And he goes, really, who'd you play for? I said, Ermington Rydalmere. And he said, who was in your team? And I said, oh, Steve Massey, Paul Morris, whatever. And he said, oh, that was a good team. I said, yeah, it was a good team. You played for the Police Boys. He said, yeah, I remember. And I said, we had a bit of a run-in once at a scrum. He said, really? I don't think, it was like, can I buy a vowel? He would have had that many run-ins with that many people, so he wouldn't have remembered my one. But I said, I believe you like some shirts up in a shop in Bangalore. And he said, they are the best shirts I've ever seen. I said, I make them. And he goes, get out of here. Where are you? And he was living at East Ryde at the time. And I said, I'm at West Ryde. And he said, I'll see you tomorrow. So he came down and he bought some shirts for himself, but he also had to be careful because they were sponsored by Lowe's at the time and he couldn't sort of do some stuff. But, he came in a few times and we had lots of phone calls. Lovely bloke, just a knockabout bloke. But there's been lots of, we had John Williamson come into the shop and he saw a jacket that I made that had a big cockatoo on it. And it was quite funny. When he came into the shop, I wasn't quite sure. He came in with friends of mine and they just said, can we bring in a friend? He really likes your stuff. And I said, yeah, sure. And I didn't know it was him. And we're having a coffee, which there's a French patisserie 2 doors down. And we're having that coffee. And I'm looking at him going, is that, but I didn't want to ask. And then the guy I was with, Brian, he asked Brian, he said, Brian, what'd you do with my guitar? He said, I put it in the shop. So then I thought, yeah, it's John Williamson. So we went into the shop and he came in, he's looking around and he sees this jacket we call cheeky because cockatoos are so cheeky. And it's just got this big cockatoo on it. And he said, oh my goodness, that's fantastic. I said, I'll get it down. You can try it on. So I got it down, tried it on, and he just loved it. He said, I'll take it. I said, and John, while you're here, I'd just like to tell you, we also do a shirt with the same fabric. So you could wear the shirt and the jacket. He said, Jim, you've gone too far. And I said, okay. I said, do you want me to show you how to play guitar? And he went, I said, you're in my domain now. Go and try it on. So he put it on. He went, I got to have it. I got to have it. So he told me he was going to launch it at the Country Music Festival. He said, I've got one guy that always wears something to show me up. He said, not this year. So
you've found the love of your life with the wonderful Wendy. Business is going well. Is there one moment that you can pinpoint where you said, yep, that's the proudest moment, or that's a defining moment in my life?
No, I don't know. I get quite emotional over things, and I think about things, and Wendy's definitely had such a big part in my life. And, you know, as I said, before I had that open heart surgery a year ago with a quadruple bypass, and without my two kids and Wendy, I don't get through it.
It's all about family and friends,
Sure.
and those that are close to you, isn't it? At a certain age and a certain point in your life. Jim, it's been a destination. The journey has been not always smooth, but just because I've known you for so long, you're a genuine fellow. I'm so pleased you have been able to join us. So thank you for not only your time, but for your friendship over the years as well.
Wonderful guy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Kaylee,
Thanks, Jimmy.
It's been a pleasure.
The views and opinions expressed on the Big 6-0 are personal and reflect those of the hosts and guests. They do not represent the views or positions of any affiliated organisations or companies. This podcast is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as professional advice. Please consult with a qualified professional for guidance on any personal matters.
And before we go, let's give credit where credit is due. Kaylee Harris and I came up with all the genius content for this week's episode. Our producer, Nick Abood, well, he keeps the lights on and makes sure we don't accidentally upload a cat video instead of a podcast. So thanks for keeping us on track, Nick. Nick?